everyone, it's Eleanor Hode here from Handsworth Park and Perryhall Park Forest School and from Handsworth Park Community Garden. I'm working with Sir Hayley, the Active Wellbeing Society and Friends of Handsworth Park. So today I wanted to talk to you about elderflowers. They finally started to bloom, so I always get really excited when the elderflowers start to bloom because there's so many delicious things we can do with them. So some of you might already know the elder tree. It is a tree, although often it looks a lot more like a shrub because it never gets really big. It's kind of like a very large shrub that grows often on the edges of woodland or often in hedgerows. And you can identify it from its leaves, which you might know. So its leaves look like this. They always have their leaves in pairs and they have a slightly serrated edge, and if you pinch them they have quite a distinctive smell, and at this time of year you'll see that the flowers are just starting to come out. They are kind of like a sort of branching umbrella type shape with their long stalk, and on the end of each of the little sections are the tiny white flowers. They're like little white stars on the end, and they open out in the sunshine. So the best elder that you'll find flowering at the moment is usually on the edge of a field or the edge of the park in a hedgerow, and you want to find the ones that are facing the sun. If you get them deep in the woodland they often don't have many flowers, but the ones that face the sun will have the best of these flowers. Just be really sure when you're picking them that it's elderflower. There are a few other things blossoming at the moment that look a little bit similar, but elderflower, it has a really distinctive smell. If you've ever drunk Elderflower Cordial, you'll know that smell. It's very floral, quite distinctive. So just get used to it and make sure you've checked that the leaves look like I've shown you and the flowers look like this. And then when you're thinking about where to pick from, you want to try and find somewhere away from the side of a road. So obviously all those pollutants coming from the car's engine won't help at all. And you want to make sure it's not somewhere that's been sprayed. So yeah, just look out for a spot that you feel is the cleanest. And the thing with picking elderflower, you want to do this on a sunny day. It's no point picking it when it's damp and rainy, because they can have a bit of a funny flavour then when you pick them and use them. You want to pick them on a sunny day when they're nice and dry, when the morning dew has dried on them. Make sure you pick ones that are high enough up so no dogs will have weed on them. And you're looking to pick the most open, dry, sunny ones that you can find. You don't really want to wash them once you've brought them home to make into things. So if you make sure you eliminate all those risks to begin with, they'll be quite safe. So I'm going to show you where I picked all of these elderflowers so you can get even better at identifying them yourself. Hi, so here I am at an elder tree. You can just see it behind me. The flowers are just starting to open. A lot of them aren't quite open yet, so we're going to go for the ones that are really white. They're kind of quite frothy, big white flowers. So I'm going to pick some of the umbrella heads and put them in my basket. Today is make some elderflower cordial. Now elderflower, as well as being really delicious, there's lots of recipes we can make with it to eat and drink. It's also a really good medicine. So elderflower promotes sweating for fevers, so if you know someone who's feverish, this is a really good herb to give them. You can make the cordial as we're going to do today and make it into a hot drink, or you can just use the flowers to make a tea and drink that, and that will help a fever. The other thing they're really good for is hay fever. At the moment they're really good drunk as a tea, and even just drunk as the elderflower cordial to help with hay fever, particularly mixed with things like nettle or plantain, and that will really help you. They may also make you sneeze if you have hay fever and you're picking them. They're very floral and potent at the moment. So if you're going to go out and pick them, which I've done already, you're looking for about 30 heads, 30 nice large heads like this. And then what you need to do is remove the flowers from the stalks. As I said, there's no need to wash them, but it is worth giving them a little shake to try and make sure the insects have left, if there are any on there. The other thing you can do is spread them out, maybe out in the garden, so that any insects have a little bit of time to crawl away. So you might just leave them out for 15 minutes or so and just make sure any insects have crawled off that are on them. Give them a little shake, and then you can either use a fork to pull downwards and remove the flowers, which works quite well, and they will just come off. If you get a bit of the stalk in it, it doesn't really matter, but you just want the main thing to be the flowers. A fork does work, or I find it easier just to strip them with your fingers. So that's what I'm going to do with this last one. Just strip them off, and you'll see you get left with these little stalky pieces behind. And the flowers are really where all that delicious flavour is from. The other thing people do with elderflowers is they make fritters with them. So you can actually dip them in a batter, a slightly sweet batter, or even a batter made with fizzy water. Carbonated water with flour and a little bit of sugar is nice. And then fry them. They're really nice, even with a little bit of sugar on once they're done. So the thing with all these medicines is there's lots of ways to take them as part of our food. Let food be thy medicine. Okay, so that one's done. So you can see in the bowl now, we've got a good collection of those petals. So that was about 30 flower heads. Now to that, I'm going to add 2 sliced lemons. Those are going to go in. Just get the best lemons you can, preferably unwaxed. If you can't find that, just make sure you give the outside a really good wash to take off any preservatives that may have been put on the outside or any wax. And then slice it up so you've got the skin and the whole lemon in there. And the next one I'm going to add is sugar. The recipe does call for 1 kilogram of sugar, which does sound like quite a lot, but it is going to be cordial, so it will be watered down. You can experiment with using less sugar or using sugar alternatives, things like coconut sugar, but the sugar does act as a way to preserve it. So I would recommend, if you are trying other things, to make sure it gets drunk quite quickly, because the sugar will be the thing that helps to preserve it. So for this time doing it with you, I'm going to pour in 1 kilogram of sugar, which is in that goes. And then the final ingredient that goes in is citric acid. So citric acid, you need 50 grams of citric acid. So I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of that. If you can't get hold of citric acid, it can be the thing that's the most tricky out of this recipe to get hold of. If you can't get hold of it, you can just add extra lemon. So put in an extra lemon or even an extra orange. And again, it probably won't keep as long, but it will still be delicious. So we have our flowers, sugar, lemons, and citric acid. And I'm just going to give them all a good mix together. Couldn't be simpler. And the smell coming off of there is just amazing. If you've ever bought Elderflower Cordial, it is really expensive, the decent quality Elderflower Cordial. So this is a great way to make your own at home for much cheaper. Okay, so now that's all mixed together, we're going to add boiling water. So the amount is just a full kettle full, which I know some kettles are slightly different sizes. So it's about 1.5 litres of boiling water. So that's going to go over the top. If you find you can't find 30 elderflower heads, you could always do it with a bit less. So that's all in. Just reduce the amount of sugar accordingly. So, oh, it smells so good. So you're just going to stir this until all the sugar has dissolved. So you can just, at the moment, you can hear it just crunching on the bottom, but it's just dissolving in now. And once you've mixed it all together like this, what you need to do is cover it over with a clean tea towel and just leave it at room temperature. So just on the side in the kitchen is fine, because you need to leave it for at least 24 hours, preferably 48 hours, for all those flavours to develop. So it will cool down and then it will start to infuse with all those amazing elderflower flavours. Oh, it smells so good. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So the next stage, I'm going to show you one that I've already prepared and what to do with it after the 48 hours have passed. Okay, so here is a batch of the cordial that I made 2 days ago. It's just been sitting steeping. It smells really delicious, really fresh and summery actually. So I'm just going to show you what the next step is to do with this. So what you'll need is something to strain this through. So the ideal thing would be a sieve. If you just use a sieve on its own, which you can do, particularly if you've got a very fine mesh sieve, you may still find that some of the tiny bits will get through, which is fine. But if you want it to be the most clean liquid you can, a really good thing to do is to get a piece of muslin cloth and line your sieve, and that will make sure you really catch all of those pieces. If you can't find muslin cloth, you could use another piece of fabric. Just make sure you've washed it first and then that you've poured boiling water over it just to make sure it's really clean and sterilised. Any kind of fine mesh that you can find, you may have other things at home that you can use for that. Anything that's going to catch all those little bits is going to really help us. And then we'll place that on top of a jug. I've got a big jug here today to use, but you can use just any normal measuring jug or even just a bowl that will catch it. And then I'm going to ladle this mixture slowly into the jug. And we don't want to rush it, we want to let it just pour through gently. Hear it going in. And just strain it off. Now the resulting liquid that you get does need to be kept in the fridge. It won't keep that long. Elderflower is really high in yeasts and sugars, so if you left this for over a couple of weeks, it would start to ferment and it will start to become alcoholic over time. So what you want to do is keep it in the fridge, drink it within the first week. If you want to keep it longer, you can freeze it. If you freeze it in plastic containers, it will keep indefinitely in the freezer. The other thing you can do with it is you can pasteurise it, which would involve getting the bottle of it and putting it in boiling water and boiling that pan up for a couple of minutes, and then that will help it keep even longer. If you've ever made preserved fruits or something like that, it's a similar sort of method. But in my house these days, it doesn't tend to last very long because it is so delicious. So we can just see the last of that just dripping through. If you've got a bit of time, just leave that to sit for 10-15 minutes just to let the last bits go through. You can give it a little press down just to get the last drops out of there. And then that liquid, it's a really lovely colour. You'll need to pour that into a jar or a bottle. Make sure, glass is best. Make sure you've thoroughly cleaned it. It needs to not smell of anything. Wash it in hot soapy water, rinse it, and then the best thing to do is pop it in the oven for a little while to sterilise it. If you've got a dishwasher and you take it out of the dishwasher, that will also be nice and sterilised. So let's pour it in. See how much we've got from this batch. You'll see it's a lovely colour. Smells really good. So that's ready to go now. Store it in the fridge, as I've said. You need to dilute it with water, just like you would any other cordial or squash. It's really good with fizzy water and ice. That makes a really delicious drink on a sunny day. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know how you get on with making your own elderflower cordial. Bye!